Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started. Screaming, he nearly dropped his cup as red lights flashed across the command center of Earth Defense Station Olympus. The coffee was still hot enough to burn his tongue, but he forgot about that as soon as he saw the readings on his screens. What the hell is going on? Jake asked, rushing to his command chair. Around him, his crew scrambled to their stations. The morning shift had started, just like any other day, but now everyone looked scared. Sir, we're getting massive readings from the outer system, said Amy Rodriguez from her communication station. Her dark hair was still messy from sleep, but her fingers flew across the controls. Multiple contacts approaching from deep space. How many? Jake demanded. 47 ships. Sir, no, wait, 52, they keep coming. Amy's voice was tight with worry. Commander Pete Sullivan appeared at Jake's shoulder. The big man was already in full uniform, even though it was barely 6:00 in the morning. Could be an invasion fleet. We need to sound general alert. Jake nodded. Do it. Get me a line to Earth Command and wake up Dr. Park. If these are aliens, we'll need her. The station buzzed with activity as more crew members arrived. Jake had commanded Olympus for 3 years, but they had never faced anything like this. Earth had made contact with alien civilizations before, but usually it was just 1 or 2 ships. This looked like an entire fleet. Sir, Amy called out, I'm getting signals from the lead ships. They're trying to communicate. Can you understand them? Amy plugged in her translation equipment. She was the best language specialist in the Earth Defense Force. But alien communications were always tricky. Give me a minute, sir. The patterns are strange. Very strange. Dr. Lisa Park hurried into the command center, still putting on her lab coat. Her red hair was pulled back in a quick ponytail and she looked tired but alert. Jake, what's the situation? Lots of alien ships heading our way. Amy's trying to figure out what they want. Lisa moved to her science station and started running scans. These readings don't make sense. The ships are all different designs, completely different. It's like they're from different species. Multiple alien races working together. Pete asked, that's never happened before. Got something? Amy suddenly shouted. Everyone turned to look at her. She looked pale. The message is simple, but it's coming from all the ships. Same message over and over. What does it say? Jake asked. Amy looked up at him with wide eyes. Sanctuary, please. The hegemony cast us out. The command center went quiet. Jake felt a chill run down his back. Sanctuary, they're asking for help. That's what it sounds like, sir. Lisa was studying her scanners with a frown. Jake, these ships are damaged. Really damaged. Hull breaches, power failures, life support running on minimum. Some of them are barely holding together. How many people are on those ships? Jake asked. Life signs are hard to read with all the different species, but I'm estimating at least 50,000 beings, maybe more. Jake sat down hard in his command chair. 50,000 alien refugees. The station could maybe handle a few hundred visitors, not tens of thousands. Sir, Pete said quietly, we need to think about this. We don't know these aliens. We don't know why they were cast out. What if they're dangerous? What if they're criminals? Before Jake could answer, Amy spoke up again. Sir, I'm getting more detailed messages now. The ships are identifying themselves. She put the translations on the main screen. Jake read them with growing amazement. The crystal ship says they're Zapirians. Exiled for thinking independently. The big organic ship carries Nixari. Banished for refusing to surrender there. Queen, the small white ships have. Valdris aboard cast out for being. Pacifists. Pacifists, Lisa asked. They were exiled. For being peaceful. That's what they're saying, Amy confirmed, and there are more. The Corvani were expelled for asking too many questions, the Deltans for refusing to fight in someone else's war, the Hawks for protecting their children instead of sending them to military schools. Jake stared at the screen. These weren't criminals or monsters. These were beings who had been thrown out for the kinds of things humans respected: independence, protecting family, asking questions, refusing to fight unjust wars. Sir Pete said Earth Command is on the line. Jake took the call. General Warren's face appeared on his screen, looking worried and tired. Morrison, what's your status, sir? We have 50+ alien ships requesting sanctuary. They appear you to be refugees from something called the hegemony. Refugees? How many beings are we talking about? Possibly 50,000, sir. Maybe more. There was a long pause. Jake could hear voices in the background at Earth Command, people arguing. Morrison, Earth doesn't have the resources to handle that many aliens. We barely have enough food and housing for our own people, sir. These ships are falling apart. If we turn them away, they'll die out there. Another pause. I'll need to discuss this with the World Council. Can you keep them at a safe distance until we decide? Yes, sir, but some of these ships won't last long. Their life support systems are failing. Do what you can, Morrison, but don't let them get too close to Earth until we know more. The line went dead. Jake looked around at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. Amy, open a channel to the alien ships. All of them. Channel open, sir. Jake took a deep breath. This is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth Defense Station Olympus. We have received your request for sanctuary. We are considering your situation. Can you maintain your current position while we discuss this with our leaders? The response came back quickly. Amy translated as it arrived. They say they understand. They will wait. They thank us for not shooting at them immediately. Not shooting? Pete asked. Is that what usually happens to them? Amy listened to more transmissions. They're saying that most worlds either ignore their distress calls or attack them on sight. The hegemony has told everyone that exiles are dangerous and should be destroyed. Lisa was still studying her scanners. Jake, that ship with the crystal structure is losing power. Their life support will fail within hours. Jake made his decision. Amy, tell the crystal ship they can approach the station for emergency repairs. Just that one ship for now, sir. Pete looked worried. Earth Command said to keep them at a distance. That ship has families aboard, Pete. I can see children on the life sign readings. I won't let kids die while politicians argue. An hour later, Jake watched through the observation deck as the crystal ship slowly approached. It was beautiful in a strange way, made of what looked like clear and colored glass, but it was clearly damaged. Cracks ran through its structure and pieces were missing. The ship docked carefully at one of the station's emergency ports. Jake, Lisa, and a security team waited in the docking bay. As the airlock opened, the first being to step through was tall and thin, made of the same crystal material as the ship, it moved carefully as if it was fragile. Behind it came others, adults, and what must have been children, all crystal beings but in different colors and shapes. The lead crystal being approached Jake slowly. It spoke in a voice like wind chimes, and Amy's translator rendered it into English. "Thank you for allowing us to dock. I am Harmony of Distant Stars. We are grateful for your kindness." Jake looked at the crystal being, then at the families behind it. The children stayed close to their parents, scared but curious. One small crystal child peeked out from behind its parent and waved at him. Jake waved back, then looked at Harmony of Distant Stars. "Welcome to Earth Space. We'll help you fix your ship." As the crystal families were led to temporary quarters, Jake made another decision. He opened a channel to all the waiting ships. "This is Captain Morrison. Earth Defense Station Olympus will provide emergency assistance to any ship in immediate danger. We will not turn away beings in need." Pete looked at him with concern. "Jake, Earth Command won't like this." "Then Earth Command can come out here and explain to those kids why they have to die," Jake replied. "Amy, send a message to Earth. Tell them I'm using emergency protocols to provide humanitarian aid. Tell them these people aren't criminals. They're refugees whose only crime was being decent." As more damaged ships approached the station, Jake watched from his command center. He didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know if Earth would accept these refugees or order him to turn them away, but he knew one thing for certain: humanity wouldn't abandon people in need, not if he had anything to say about it. 6 months had passed since the first refugee ships arrived at Earth. The solar system looked completely different now. Where once there had been empty space and cold rocks, there were now cities of light floating in the darkness. Tony Kim wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked inside the massive construction bay on Luna Station. Around him, human workers and crystal Zafarans worked together on something that should have been impossible. They were building a new kind of computer using both human electronics and Zafaran crystal technology. "Hand me that power coupling," Tony called to his partner. Zafaran named Clear Morning Light. The crystal being passed him the device with hands that sparkled like diamonds. "The connection patterns are still unstable," Clear Morning Light said in its wind chime voice. "Perhaps we should adjust the frequency matrix." Tony nodded. 6 months ago, he would never have imagined working with an alien made of living crystal. How Clear Morning Light was not just his partner but his friend. The Zapirians' way of thinking about technology was completely different from humans, but when they combined their ideas, amazing things happened. The computer they were building could process information 10 times faster than anything Earth had ever created. It used human logic, circuits connected to Zapirian crystal networks that could think in ways no human computer ever could. Tony called a voice from across the bay. Grace Williams jogged over, still wearing her medical uniform. The small woman looked tired but happy. "You need to see what we discovered in the medical bay." Grace led Tony and Clear Morning Light through the station corridors. The halls were full of beings from dozens of different worlds. Crystal Zapirians walked next to Furry Corvani. The tall, thin Delton chatted with short, round Hicks. Human children played games with alien kids, laughing in ways that needed no translation. In the medical bay, Grace showed them too. A laboratory where she had been working. With Dr. Kent, a Valdres healer. The Valdres looked like a large, gentle bird with soft white feathers and hue. Kind eyes. Look at this, Grace said. Excitedly, she pointed to a screen. Showing complex medical data. Dr. Kent taught me how Valdres medicine works. They don't just treat diseases, they prevent them from ever starting. Tony looked at the data but didn't understand most of it. What does that mean? It means we can cure cancer, Grace said quietly. Not just treat it, actually cure it. Forever. Clear morning light's crystal body brightened with interest. The Valdres healing techniques work on the basic patterns of life itself. Dr. Kent nodded, speaking in the soft, musical tones of his people. We learned long ago that sickness is just patterns. Gone wrong, fix the patterns, fix the sickness, but that's not all, Grace continued. We've been working with healers from 6 different species. Each one knows things the others don't. When we combine their knowledge with human medicine, we can treat diseases that none of us could handle alone. Tony felt amazed. How many people could this help? Everyone, Grace said simply. Every human, every alien, all of us. As they walked back through the station, Tony thought about all the changes he had seen. The asteroid mines now used Corvani tunneling techniques that were 3 times faster than human methods. The farms on Mars grew crops using HFY soil treatments that made plants grow bigger and healthier than ever before. But the biggest changes weren't in technology. They were in people. Tony remembered Commander Pete Sullivan, who had been suspicious of the aliens at first. Now, Pete worked closely with an Exiled tactical group, learning their way of making decisions as a team. The Exiled could share thoughts directly with each other, and they were teaching humans how to work together in ways that seemed almost magical. The lunch shift is starting. Clear morning light observed. Shall we join the others? They made their way to the main dining hall, which had become the heart of the station's social life. Long tables were filled with beings from across the galaxy, sharing meals and stories. Tony sat down next to Danny Carter, who was excitedly talking to a group of Hicks farmers about crop rotation. Danny had been working with alien agriculturalists to solve Earth's food problems. With 50,000 new mouths to feed, everyone had worried about running out of supplies. The HFY method is incredible, Danny was saying. They can make any soil perfect for growing even in space stations, and the Deltans showed me plants that can grow in almost no water at all. One of the Hicks around being with orange fur chirped happily. Human farming techniques are also valuable. Your crop varieties are very strong. Combined methods will feed many more people. Tony noticed Amy Rodriguez sitting at another table with a group of young beings from different species. She was teaching them Earth languages while they taught her their own. The table was full of laughter as they tried to pronounce difficult words, but not everyone was happy with the changes. As Tony ate his lunch, he overheard a conversation at the next table. 3 human engineers were talking in low, angry voices. It's getting out of hand, one of them said. There are more aliens on this station than humans now, and they're changing everything. Another added, new computers, new farming methods, new medicine. What happens to human technology? What happens to human jobs? I heard that. Earth First is organizing protests back home, the third engineer said. They want all the aliens sent away. Tony felt his stomach tighten. He had heard about Earth First, a political group that believed humans should stay separate from aliens. They claimed the refugees were dangerous and that helping them would destroy human culture. Clear morning light had heard the conversation too, the crystal beings. Light dimmed slightly, which Tony had learned meant sadness or worry. Do many humans feel this way? Clear morning light asked quietly. Some do, Tony admitted. They're scared of changes happening too fast. We do not wish to cause problems. Clear morning light said. Perhaps we should leave. No, Tony said firmly. You're part of this community now. This is your home too. That afternoon Tony attended a meeting in the station's main conference room. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, was there along with representatives from Earth and from all the refugee species. The room was packed with beings of every shape and size imaginable. We need to address the concerns being raised on Earth, Admiral Morrison said. Some people are worried that we're changing too fast, that human culture is being lost. Commander Sullivan stood up. With respect, sir, I think they're wrong. I've been working with the Nexari for months now. I'm still human, but I'm a better human. Their teamwork methods have made our whole security force more effective. A Valdris healer raised a feathered wing. We do not wish to replace human ways. We wish to add to them as you add to ours. Dr. Lisa Park, who was now the station's chief science officer, nodded. The collaboration we've achieved here is unprecedented. We're solving problems that none of our species could solve alone. But what about Earth? Asked one of the human representatives. The World Council is under pressure to limit the refugee program. Earth First is gaining support. Admiral Morrison was quiet for a moment. Then we need to show them what we've accomplished, not just tell them, but show them. Amy Rodriguez raised her hand. What if we invited Earth First leaders to visit the stations? Let them see how the cooperation actually works. They'd never come. The Earth representative said they believe this place is too dangerous. Then we bring the evidence to them. Admiral Morrison decided. We send delegations to Earth, mixed teams of humans and aliens, showing the results of our work together. Over the next few weeks, teams prepared for the trips to Earth. Grace Williams would demonstrate the new medical treatments. Danny Carter would show the improved farming techniques. Tony Kim would present the revolutionary new computers. But as the teams prepared to leave, troubling news arrived from Earth. Amy Rodriguez received the communications and brought them straight to Admiral Morrison. Sir, we're getting reports of protests at the World Council building. Earth First has organized demonstrations demanding that all aliens be expelled from the solar system. How big are they? Protests? Morrison asked. Thousands of people, sir, and they're growing. Morrison looked out the window at the thriving communities floating in space. Around them, human and alien children played together in the recreation areas. Scientists from a dozen worlds worked side by side in laboratories. Engineers built impossible machines using the best ideas from across the galaxy. Amy sent a message to Earth. Tell them we're coming home to share what we've learned. Tell them we have gifts for all humanity, and if they refuse to see us. Morrison smiled grimly. Then we'll Remind them what humans are really like. We don't abandon our friends, and we don't let fear destroy something beautiful. As the ships prepared for the journey to Earth, Tony worked late into the night with clear morning light, putting finishing touches on their latest creation. It was a communication device that could connect any being to any other being, regardless of species or language. This could change everything, Tony said. No more misunderstandings, no more fear of the unknown. If they will use it, clear morning light said softly. Tony looked at his crystal friend, then at all the other beings working around them. In 6 months, the message arrived on a Tuesday morning. While Admiral Jake Morrison was reviewing supply reports, Amy Rodriguez burst into his office, her face pale with worry. "Sir, you need to see this immediately," she said, activating the main display screen. "It's from the galactic hegemony." The screen filled with the image of a creature that made Jake's blood run cold. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in dark scales and wearing elaborate military armor. Its eyes were like black holes, and when it spoke, its voice was filled with cold authority. "I am Admiral Krexther of the Galactic Hegemony Defense Forces. You will surrender all escaped criminals currently hiding in your primitive system. You have 72 hours to comply or face the consequences of harboring enemies of galactic peace." The message continued with technical details about the supposed crimes of the refugees. According to the hegemony, the Zephyrians were dangerous rebels, the Nixari were a threat to social order, and the Valdris were weak pacifists who encouraged disorder by refusing to fight. Jake turned off the display and sat down heavily. "How big is their fleet?" Amy checked her readings. "We're detecting over 300 ships approaching from deep space. They'll reach the outer system in 6 days. 300. Jake felt sick. Earth's entire defense force had maybe 50 ships, and most of them were small patrol vessels. "Get me Admiral Helen Brooks at Defense Command, and find Dr. Sam Mitchell. If we're going to survive this, we'll need every advantage we can get." Within hours, every human and alien in the solar system knew about the approaching threat. The response was immediate and surprising. Instead of panic, there was determination. Admiral Brooks arrived at Luna Station the next day, bringing with her every ship that Earth could spare. She was a tall, serious woman who had spent her life preparing for threats that might never come. Now the threat was real and bigger than anything she had ever imagined. "Our fleet is not designed for this kind of battle," she told the emergency meeting of human and alien leaders. "The hegemony ships are bigger, faster, and better armed than anything we have." "Then we must be smarter," said Wisdom Flows Like Water, one of the Nixari leaders. The hive-minded being spoke for thousands of its people. "Our species have survived hegemony oppression for generations. We know their tactics." Dr. Sam Mitchell, a thin man with wild hair who rarely left his laboratory, had been working around the clock since the threat was announced. "I've been studying the technical data the refugees brought about hegemony ships. They have weaknesses." "What kind of weaknesses?" Admiral Brooks asked. "They're built for fighting species that think like they do. Rigid formations, predictable tactics, overwhelming force. They've never faced anything like what we can do when we work together." Clear morning light, Tony Kim's crystal partner, brightened with understanding. The Hegemony expects each species to fight. Separately, they do not know how to handle true cooperation. Over the following days, the solar system transformed into a massive workshop of war, but it was unlike any military preparation in human history. In the asteroid belt, Corvani miners used their tunneling skills to hollow out rocks and fill them with weapons. Human engineers worked with Zapirian crystal smiths to create new kinds of sensors that could see through hegemony. Stealth fields, Valdris healers taught human medics how to treat battle injuries from dozens of different species. Tony Kim found himself designing weapon systems that combined the best ideas from every species in the Alliance. The results were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. This plasma cannon uses human magnetic containment, Zapirian crystal focusing arrays, and Nexari targeting systems. He explained to Admiral Brooks, it can punch through hegemony armor that would stop any conventional weapon, but the most important work was happening in the communication centers. Amy Rodriguez led teams of translators and tacticians from every species, creating a battle coordination system that would let hundreds of different ships work as one unit. The Nexari can share thoughts instantly across their entire fleet, Amy explained. If we can adapt their system to work with other species, we can coordinate attacks better than the hegemony ever could. Meanwhile, Maria Santos had taken a small diplomatic ship to the edge of the system. Her mission was dangerous but crucial. She was trying to contact neutral worlds that might be willing to help or at least stay out of the fight. Most systems are too scared of the hegemony to openly help us, she reported during a secure communication. But I've found something interesting. There are hegemony worlds that aren't happy with their government. They're tired of the oppression and the endless wars. Can any of them be convinced to switch sides? Morrison asked. Maybe, but they'll need proof that we can actually win. Right now, most of the galaxy thinks we're all going to die. Dr. Mitchell had been working on the most ambitious project of all, deep in a hidden laboratory on one of Jupiter's moons. He was building something that could change the entire battle. Quantum displacement fields, he explained to the small group of people cleared to know about his work. Theory is simple. Instead of trying to stop enemy weapons, we redirect them. Redirect them where? Admiral Brooks asked. Mitchell smiled grimly back at whoever fired them. As the hegemony fleet approached the outer system, final preparations were made. The defending fleet was a strange sight. Human warships flew alongside crystal Zapirian vessels that looked like flying jewels. Organic Nexari ships that seemed more grown than built moved next to the sleek white craft of the Valdris. Commander Pete Sullivan, now in charge of coordinating the different fleets, was amazed by what he saw. 6 months ago, I was worried about having a few alien refugees on our stations. Now I'm commanding the most diverse fleet in galactic history. The refugee species had contributed more than just ships and weapons. They had shared intelligence about hegemony tactics that proved incredibly valuable. Hegemony fleets always attack the same way, explained source above clouds, a Delta military advisor. They form massive formations and try to overwhelm defenders with superior numbers. They expect their enemies to either surrender or fight desperately and lose. What they don't expect, added a helix Strategist is for defenders to be patient, flexible, and work together perfectly. The first contact with the hegemony fleet came when their scouts reached Pluto's orbit. Admiral KX Thor himself led the communication. "Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick," he announced. "Continue to harbor criminals, and your entire species will be marked for elimination." Admiral Morrison's response was broadcast throughout the solar system and beyond. "This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Forces. We recognize no authority but our own conscience. The beings you call criminals are our friends and neighbors. If you want them, you'll have to go through us." Kraigsir's reply was filled with cold laughter. "You primitives have no idea what you face. 300 ships of the hegemony will crush your pathetic defense. Your species will serve as an example to others who might think to defy galactic order." But as the hegemony fleet moved deeper into the solar system, Admiral Krexer began to notice things that didn't match his intelligence. Reports the defending ships moved in patterns he had never seen before. Their formations shifted and flowed like living things. When he tried to scan individual vessels, he found ship designs that made no sense according to hegemony military science. "What are these readings?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "Unknown, Admiral. The ships appear to be using hybrid technologies. Our databases have no classification for most of these vessel types on Luna Station." Admiral Morrison watched the approaching fleet with grim determination. Around him, beings from dozens of worlds worked together with a precision that would have been impossible just months before. "All stations report ready," Amy Rodriguez announced. "Displacement field generators are online," Dr. Mitchell reported. "Allied fleets are in position," Commander Sullivan confirmed. Morrison looked out at the stars where ships from across the galaxy prepared to defend their new home. 6 months ago, these beings had been desperate refugees with broken ships and little hope. Now they were part of something larger than any single species could achieve alone. "This is Admiral Morrison to all ships," he broadcast. "Today we don't just defend our homes, we defend the idea that different peoples can live together in peace. We defend the belief that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. Today we show the galaxy what's possible when beings choose cooperation over domination." As the hegemony fleet approached the outer defenses, the battle for the future of galactic civilization was about to begin. First shots of the battle came at dawn. On Earth, Admiral Krexer's fleet opened fire on the outer defense stations near Pluto, expecting them to collapse immediately under the massive barrage. Instead, something impossible happened. The energy beams from the hegemony ships hit Dr. Mitchell's quantum displacement fields and bounced back like light from a mirror. 3 hegemony cruisers were destroyed by their own weapons before Krexer could order his fleet to stop firing. "What is this?" Krex Thor roared at his tactical officers. "How are primitives deflecting our weapons?" Colonel Rick Taylor watched the first exchange from his fighter cockpit near Neptune. The young pilot had been chosen to lead the elite fighter squadrons because of his ability to adapt quickly to new situations. His ship was a perfect example of human-alien cooperation, a human frame powered by Zafran crystal engines and armed with weapons that changed and adapted using Nexari technology. All fighters, this is Colonel Taylor, he broadcast to his mixed squadron of human and alien pilots. Remember your training, stay flexible. Watch each other's backs and show them what teamwork really means. The fighter battle began as hegemony attack ships rushed toward the inner planets. Rick's squadron met them halfway in. Immediately the enemy pilots found themselves confused and overwhelmed. The human-alien fighters moved like schools of fish, each pilot knowing exactly where the others would be without needing radio communication. The Nexari had taught them how to share tactical awareness in real time. When one pilot spotted an enemy, all of them knew about it instantly. Marcus Johnson, the youngest pilot in the squadron, flew a ship that shouldn't have been able to exist. It was built using Valdris healing technology that could repair damage during battle, Zephyrin crystals that made it nearly invisible to sensors, and human engineering that made it tough enough to ram through enemy formations and survive. Enemy fighters coming in from Sector 7, Marcus called out as his ship danced through a formation of hegemony attack craft. His weapons adapted to each target automatically, using different types of energy against different ship designs. The hegemony pilots had been trained to fight enemies who used predictable tactics and familiar technologies. They had never faced ships that could change their weapons in the middle of battle, or pilots who seemed to know what the enemy would do before they did it. Back on Luna Station, Admiral Morrison coordinated the defense from the main command center. Around him, humans and aliens worked together with a precision that amazed everyone who saw it. Amy Rodriguez translated communications between dozens of species in real time, while Nixari, tactical specialist, provided battlefield analysis that kept the defense one step ahead of every enemy move. Hegemony main fleet is moving toward Mars, Commander Sullivan reported. They're ignoring our outer defenses and trying to break through to Earth directly. Let them come, Morrison said calmly. Mars is ready. The red planet had been transformed into the largest military-industrial complex in human history. Danny Carter's agricultural improvements meant that Mars could feed itself and the rest of the system during a long siege. More importantly, the planet's factories were producing new ships and weapons faster than anyone had thought possible. As the hegemony fleet approached Mars, they encountered the asteroid belt. What looked like empty space was actually filled with hidden weapons and surprise attacks. Corvani miners had turned asteroids into flying bombs that could ram hegemony ships. Hicks engineers had built weapon platforms that looked like ordinary rocks until they opened fire. Admiral Krexler watched his fleet take losses from enemies he couldn't even see. How are they doing this? Our intelligence said these primitives barely had space travel. The refugees must have shared their technology, his tactical officer suggested. Impossible. Refugees have no advanced technology. That's why they're refugees. But as the battle continued, KX Thor was forced to admit that something was very wrong with his assumptions. The enemy ships fought with technologies that seemed to combine the best aspects of every species in his databases. Worse, they fought with a coordination that made his own fleet look clumsy and slow. Dr. Janet Lee coordinated the massive task of keeping billions of people safe. During the battle, Earth cities had been evacuated to underground shelters, but The orbital stations and lunar colonies continued to operate normally. The refugee communities had volunteered to help with civilian protection, using their various abilities to keep everyone calm and safe. The Valdris are amazing. With children, she reported to Morrison, they can calm down scared kids just by being near them, and the Hawks have been sharing food with families in the shelters. Nobody's going hungry. As the hegemony fleet pushed deeper into the solar system, they began to take serious losses. Ships that should have been easy targets turned out to be incredibly tough. Human engineering designed to survive in the dangerous environment of space proved surprisingly effective at surviving combat damage. Their ships keep fighting, even when they should be dead, reported one of Krexer's captains. We destroyed the main power on a human cruiser, but it's still firing weapons. Use redundant systems, KX Thor ordered. Destroy every part of their ships, but even that didn't work as expected. Ships built with Valdra's healing technology could repair themselves during battle. Crystal-powered vessels could reroute energy through backup systems that the hegemony couldn't detect, and the coordination between different ship types meant that damaged vessels were immediately protected by others until they could recover. The turning point came when the hegemony fleet reached Earth's moon. Admiral KX Thor was confident that his superior numbers would overwhelm the defenders in the final battle. He had lost nearly a third of his ships getting this far, but he still had over 200 vessels against the maybe 60 ships defending Earth directly. Then Maria Santos's diplomatic mission paid off in a way no one had expected. Admiral Morrison, Amy Rodriguez called out excitedly, "We're getting signals from inside the hegemony fleet. Some of their ships are requesting permission to defect. How many ships? 37 so far, sir, and more every minute." Hegemony flagship, Admiral KX Thor, was dealing with a crisis he had never imagined. 3 of his own fleet commanders were refusing orders. Entire squadrons were breaking formation and moving toward the Earth defense lines. Admiral, his communications officer, reported nervously, "Captain Wheeler of the 4th Battle Group is requesting to speak with you. Put him through." KX Thor snarled. Captain Wheeler appeared on screen. He was a member of the Corvani species, the same furry people who were now helping defend Earth. "Admiral, I cannot continue this attack. These people are protecting refugees from our own oppression. They're showing us what the galaxy could be if we weren't ruled by fear. You will return to formation immediately, or be destroyed as a traitor." "No, Admiral, my ships are joining the defense of Earth. My people deserve to live in freedom, not under hegemony tyranny." As Wheeler's ships changed sides, other hegemony vessels began to follow. The neat formations that Krexler had led into the solar system started to fall apart as more and more ships refused to fight against people who were protecting refugees and offering freedom. By the time the main battle began, Earth's moon, Admiral KX Thor had lost almost half his fleet to defections. The remaining ships were manned by crews who were beginning to doubt their cause. The battle itself was unlike anything recorded galactic history. Instead of massive formations grinding against each other, it became a fluid dance of ships that worked together in perfect harmony. Human vessels provided tough, reliable firepower, while alien ships contributed Speed, stealth, and specialized weapons. Colonel Taylor's fighters darted through the battle like angry wasps there. Hybrid technologies, making them nearly impossible to track or destroy. Marcus Johnson's ship took hit after hit, but kept fighting, its Valdris healing systems repairing damage as fast as the enemy could cause it. This is impossible, KX Thor muttered as he watched his forces being outfought by ships that should have been inferior in every way. How are they doing this? His answer came when one of his own officers, a young Vorak named Kesseter, spoke up from the tactical station. Admiral, perhaps it's because they're fighting for something they believe in, while we're fighting to preserve a system that benefits only us. Krexer turned on the young officer with fury. But before he could speak, alarms began blaring throughout his flagship. Earth's coordinated attack had broken through his remaining defenses. Admiral Morrison's voice came over the communication systems of every ship in the battle, human and alien alike. Admiral Krexler, your fleet is defeated. Surrender now and your crews will be treated with respect and dignity. Continue fighting and face the consequences. Looking at his tactical displays, KX Thor saw the truth. Over half his original fleet had defected to Earth's side. Most of his remaining ships were damaged or destroyed. His mighty invasion force had been crushed, not by superior firepower, but by superior cooperation and the power of beings fighting for their freedom and their friends. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Krexler of the galactic hegemony admitted defeat. 6 months after the Great Battle, President Elena Garcia stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station and watched the most amazing sight in human history. Ships from hundreds of different worlds filled the space around Earth, but these weren't invaders or refugees. They were delegates coming to join something completely new in galactic civilization. Madame President, said Ambassador John Wright, approaching with his usual collection of data tablets. The morning session is ready to begin. We have representatives from 47 more worlds requesting membership in the Alliance. Elena smiled as she watched a group of crystal Zapirian children playing with human kids in the station's recreation area below. The children laughed and chased each other in games that needed no common language, just the universal joy of play. How many does that make total, John? 238 worlds have officially joined the Free Worlds Alliance. Another 100 are in the process of breaking away from what's left of the hegemony to join us. The transformation of the galaxy had happened faster than anyone could have imagined. The defeat of Admiral KX Thor's fleet had sent shock waves across every corner of known space. For the first time in generations, beings across the galaxy had seen proof that the hegemony could be defeated, that there was an alternative to their oppressive rule. Dr. Kevin Chang walked up to join them. At the observation window, the quiet man had become the architect of the new alliance structure, working with representatives from hundreds of species to create something that had never existed before, a truly cooperative interstellar government. The morning vote should be interesting, Kevin said. We're deciding on the proposal from the Andromedans. They want to join the Alliance, but they're from outside our galaxy entirely. Elena nodded. The Andromedan refugees had arrived just 2 weeks ago, fleeing their own version of the hegemony in the neighboring galaxy. word of Earth's sanctuary for outcasts had somehow traveled across the vast empty space between galaxies. "What's the biggest challenge today?" she asked. "Same as always," Kevin replied. "How do you create laws and systems that work for beings who are completely different from each other? We have species that breathe methane working alongside ones that need pure oxygen. We have hive minds trying to cooperate with extreme individualists. We have beings who live for thousands of years making decisions with species who only live for decades, but we're making it work," John added. "Somehow we're making it work." The secret Alina had learned was something humans had always been good at: adaptation. Instead of trying to force everyone to be the same, the Alliance celebrated differences and found ways to make those differences into strengths. In the morning session, Alina watched as delegates from across the galaxy worked together on problems that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. The Zephyrian representative, Harmony of Stars United, was explaining a new communication technology to a group of methane-breathing Helios delegates. The crystal matrices can translate not just words but emotional concepts and cultural meanings, Harmony explained, through the universal translators that Amy Rodriguez's team had perfected. A poem written by a Helios could be fully understood by a human, complete with all the cultural references and emotional content. At another table, Grace Williams was working with healers from 24 species to establish medical standards that would work for everyone. The alliance between different medical traditions had already eliminated dozens of diseases that had plagued various species for centuries. The Valdris healing patterns worked perfectly with Corvani's cellular regeneration, Grace was explaining, combined with human surgical techniques. We can treat injuries that would have been fatal for any of our species alone. But the most important work was happening in the education centers scattered throughout the Alliance territories. Alina visited one of them later that day, watching as children from dozens of worlds learned together. The classroom was a marvel of adaptive technology. Beings who breathed different atmospheres sat in specially designed environmental suits, while others who needed different gravity conditions worked in adjusted sections of the room. But despite all their physical differences, the children learned and played together as naturally as if they had been born on the same world. Children adapt faster than the adults, observed teacher of young minds, Valdris, educator who had become one of the Alliance's most respected experts on multi-species education. They see differences as interesting, not threatening. Alina watched a young human girl helping a crystal Zephyrian child with a math problem while a furry Corvani kid shared toys with a methane breathing Helios youngling in his environmental suit. These children would grow up in a galaxy where cooperation between species was normal, where diversity was celebrated as strength. That afternoon brought news that made Alina's heart soar and worry. At the same time, Admiral Morrison, now serving as the Alliance Defense Coordinator, had received an unexpected communication. It's from Admiral KX Thor. Jake told the Emergency Council session. He's requesting sanctuary. The room went quiet. Krexer, the former hegemony admiral who had led the attack on Earth, was asking for the same protection that Earth had given to all the other refugees. What's his situation? Alina asked. The hegemony is collapsing, Jake explained. Different factions are fighting each other for control. Cracks. Thor's own government has marked him for execution because he lost the battle against us. He says he wants to learn about our system to understand how cooperation can work better than oppression. Commander Sullivan, now head of Alliance Security, looked skeptical. It could be a trick. He could be a spy. Or, said Dr. Park, he could be genuinely seeking to change the same way thousands of other former hegemony citizens have. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates argued that KX Thor was too dangerous to trust. Others pointed out that the Alliance's core principle was offering sanctuary to all who genuinely sought it regardless of their past. Finally, Alina called for a vote, all in favor of offering conditional sanctuary to Admiral KX Thor with appropriate security measures and integration assistance. The vote was closed, but the yes votes won. The Alliance would offer sanctuary even to their former enemy, as long as he was willing to learn and change. 2 weeks later, Alina stood on the same observation deck where she had started her day months ago, but now she was watching something that would have been impossible to imagine when the first refugee ships had limped into Earth's solar system. Admiral KX Thor's ship approached the station slowly, broadcasting the same words that the first refugees had sent: sanctuary. Please. Jake Morrison met the former hegemony admiral at the docking bay. Alina watched through the security cameras as the tall, scaled being stepped carefully from his ship, looking around with what seemed like wonder at the diversity of beings working together. In the station, I do not understand, Krager said in his deep voice, speaking through the universal translator. How do so many different species work together without chaos? Jake smiled. The same way any family works together. We argue sometimes, we have disagreements, but we all want the same basic things: safety, freedom, and a chance to build something better for our children. Over the following days, Alina watched as KX Thor was slowly integrated into Alliance society. It wasn't easy. Many beings were suspicious of him, and he struggled to understand concepts like voluntary cooperation and shared decision-making. But gradually he began to change. The moment Alina knew he was truly changing came when she saw him in one of the education centers watching the Maltese's children playing together. They do not fear each other, he said quietly to Alina when she approached. No, she agreed, they don't. In the hegemony, we taught that different species could only coexist through domination. The strong ruled the weak, and order was maintained through fear. And now Krexer watched as a human child helped a young Zaffiran who had fallen down, while a Corvani kid brought them both toys to play with. Now I see that I was wrong. Cooperation is not weakness. It is the greatest strength in the universe. Months later, Alina received the message that made everything complete. Amy Rodriguez brought her the communication with tears of joy in her eyes. Madame President, we're receiving a message from the far edge of the galaxy. It's another group of refugees. They heard about the Alliance and they're asking for sanctuary. Alina smiled as she looked out at the thriving communities that surrounded Earth. Ships from hundreds of worlds worked together in perfect harmony. Beings who had once been enemies now collaborated on projects that benefited Everyone, children who had never seen their own home worlds, grew up thinking that diversity was the most natural thing in the universe. Tell them what we tell everyone who seeks sanctuary, Elena said. Earth recognizes no authority but its own conscience. All who seek freedom and cooperation are welcome among the stars' most stubborn children. As Amy sent the message across the vast distances of space, Elena thought about how much had changed. The galaxy had once been ruled by fear and oppression. Now it was becoming something better, a place where differences were celebrated, where the weak were protected, and where every being had the chance to contribute to something greater than themselves.